Mr. Speaker, I rise today to express my growing alarm with the Democrat leadership's clear intention to use the conference report on the War Supplemental Appropriations Bill to ram through a dangerous and controversial agenda through this Congress. It is now clear that Senate and House Democrats have decided to let their own political agenda subvert a bipartisan agreement on providing the men and women of our military with the support they need to continue the fight against terrorism in Iraq and Afghanistan. I proudly supported the House version of this bill when it originally passed this chamber. However, Democrats are now preparing to use the conference report, which cannot be amended, to add unrelated, politically motivated poison pills to the measure. My Democrat colleagues are proposing to add up to $108 billion for the International Monetary Fund as part of the global bailout for foreign nations. Not only is this a bad idea on its own, I have yet to hear any explanation of how on earth this will benefit our troops in Iraq and Afghanistan. In fact, this money will have precisely the opposite effect. Iran, which the State Department has repeatedly certified as the most active state sponsor of terrorism in the world, would be eligible for these funds. Venezuela's Hugo Chavez, who describes America as the biggest menace on our planet and supports narco-terrorists in neighboring nations, he too would be eligible for these funds. The purpose of this bill is to make sure our armed forces have the men and material they need to defeat terrorists. That this bill would include funding that could benefit the sponsors of terrorism, it's outrageous. All of this being said, I'd welcome an honest, open debate and vote in this chamber on the IMF funding. But my Democrat colleagues apparently would rather not risk a separate up and down vote. Therefore, they've resorted to playing games with funding for our troops by shoehorning this measure in a war spending bill with no opportunity for debate here in the People's House. And it won't end there. Unbelievably, reports are that Democrats are looking to include language, the transfer of terrorists being held in Guantanamo Bay to the United States. And they intend to require the immediate release of photographs of detained terrorists, likely inflaming Islamists across the globe and further endangering our armed forces deployed overseas. And again, I will happily debate these wrong-headed measures on the floor of this body any day of the week. But this attempt to ram these unacceptable provisions through the House without a debate or a vote is simply wrong. And I can't think of a more demoralizing message to send to our fighting forces than that a majority of Congress is willing, for political expediency's sake, to load down a war funding bill with unrelated, unpopular provisions. When I served the United States Navy, we feared the annual games politicians played with military funding. It made us angry to know that we were tasked with a mission, and then politicians played politics with the resources we needed to complete that mission. Mr. Speaker, I did not come here to play that game. There is no honor in a vote that conditions the funding for our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Coast Guardsmen on satisfying an unrelated political agenda. This Congress must not cheapen and degrade our military to simply move forward with political interests. I yield back the balance of my time.
Mr. Gomer. Mr. Henserling. Mr. Paulson. What purpose